Hello and welcome to episode 504 of I can't speak, I'm so choked up. That's how excited I am already. I have a wonderful guest on today's show. I tried to get her for episode 500 to keep up our tradition.
Oh.
She was my guest on episode 100, 124, and 200, but she's just so damn busy and in high demand. I'm happy I got her at all. It was once said about a show that she was on that it's a very wholesome show, and every week there's a fire or somebody goes blind, and that is the voice of the lovely Edie McClurg talking about Little House on the Prairie through the WKRP classic late 70s, early 80s show. But my guest today is very familiar with the show, has a podcast, has a website, a book, all kinds of stuff. She's the author of Confessions.
He can't talk. He just can't talk.
I can't talk. Confessions of a Prairie Bitch. She's like the sweetest bitch I've ever met. Alison Arngrim. Alison, how are you?
I am fabulous. Thank you so much. You're so excited you can hardly talk. It's fantastic.
I don't know.
We were mocked on other shows. We were mocked on other shows at the time, like WKRP. I love that.
You know what? I realized something. First of all, I love your new podcast, the 50 for 50 podcast, which seems to have gone beyond 50 episodes, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think we're going for 150. It's just not stopping. We're like, it's the official Little House 50th anniversry episode, even though we're now in year 51, and it's just, the train is just rolling down the track. They won't stop. We've got another event coming up. They can't get enough of us.
But you know what I love is that this is something that happened so long ago. It's in a time that most people probably kind of dismiss because it's not technology oriented. It's really a world that people just kind of don't want to think about living in. But yet there is such love and admiration and appreciation for the show, the lifestyle, people going to these events wearing bonnets. I mean, it blows my mind how into this people still are.
It is, well, can you imagine for us actors who, I've talked about this before with you. You said, when we were doing the show, well, this is a good job. And now the show will end and everyone will go on with their lives. And what? It just won't stop. For year 51, last year was crazy because it was the 50th. It was nonstop. We had events. I think we were out nearly every weekend. It was just wild. And thousands. I mean, we did an event in Simi Valley for our official 50th out in Simi, and 18,000 people showed up over 3 days. So this year we're trying to arrange events, and we're having a cap on tickets. We're not doing that again. We said 18,000 people. That was great. We're never doing that again as long as we live, because it was too much. We were exhausted. We were all exhausted. And there were a bunch of events during the year that got like out of control. There were like too many people, and there wasn't enough time to see everyone, and it got out of control. And by the end of the event, the fans were all exhausted standing in line, and we were all exhausted going, we can't even speak anymore. We're like, what are we doing? We're torturing ourselves. We can't do this. So we all agreed, us and the fans, let us not torture ourselves. Let us do civilized, small events where we can actually speak to everyone and have time to go to the bathroom, So we're planning those, and we have a lovely one coming up in June 6th through 9th in I'm like 6th through 8th. We have a full flyer. Northern California, up in Gold Country there, and that's going to be lovely. It'll be cool. It'll be shade. Yeah. There won't be 18,000 people. It'll be a nice normal number of people, but it's non-stop. It's still going. And then as you said, the podcast. People, just more and more people tuning in every week and really digging it. And we've interviewed practically everybody from the show, and we're still at it. And then we're doing episodes where we just, let's go in depth and discuss this episode and like tear it up. And as you said, we were just talking about that today. Such a lovely show. And then who's gone blind and who died and who's in a fire. And anthrax. We had anthrax.
Oh, that's
we had an episode called Quarantine, an episode called Plague. We had typhus. It's like terrible, terrible things happening every week.
But here's the thing. And I just started listening to the podcast this week, so I'm way episodes behind. But it made me realize something, and I think a big difference between the show that you had and the shows that were mocking you was that other shows may have had an episode where like, oh, there's an argument between these two people, or maybe like a light misunderstanding, and they're going to get through it and they're going to be fine. Little House had real stakes in every episode. There was always something major happening. And granted, we're talking about a drama versus a sitcom in general, but that's one of the things I realized about some of my favorite shows. Lost, The Shield, Oz,
Yes.
Cobra Kai. These shows, like every episode is edge of your seat. What's going to happen? These people can't rest for two
I think it was
seconds.
5.
Yeah, Little House, I think, was one of the first shows that would have met that criteria.
We dealt with issues of survival. That's one of the reasons I think it's still popular. We dealt with serious issues of survival and life and death, and we dealt with racism and sexism and anti-Semitism and disease and slavery and drug addiction and alcoholism and child abuse and spousal. We did it all. It was absolutely wild, and that's the thing. You look at shows that were big hits in the 70s and huge, won Emmys. The critics said they were great. Critics thought Little House, we were like totally lame. They thought Little House was dumb. And I always said, nobody in California and New York admits to watching it, only people in between. They all secretly watched it in New York and California. They would just lie and say they didn't watch it. But WKRP, for instance, I love WKRP, and it has been in reruns. Have you seen anywhere, I don't know, like a total cast reunion of WKRP?
Well, they kind of tried a little bit, but a couple of the people at Gordon Jump had already passed away. I think a couple of them weren't able to make it. There was only, I think, 1 or 2 attempts at that. I think it was kind of after they tried the new WKRP, which didn't really take off. But yeah, there wasn't quite the effort.
There's no 18,000 people standing in a field dressed up as people from WKRP in Cincinnati waiting for that.
True.
It's not happening. They're not Are they streaming? Are they there's no, Roku has a channel where you can watch Little House on the Prairie 24 hours a day, just continuously, 7 days a week. Who's doing that from that era? We hit some weird nerve. Our show was so emotional. People really tapped in. And now, as I said, there's many shows that were quite brilliant at the time, and they're just not, they're not here anymore. And we're in everybody's face every minute of the day with streaming and all. It's absolutely crazy.
Well, and people like spending their time and money making pilgrimages to places that it was either shot at or where those events, would have happened at, like actual Walnut Grove. It's almost like the Grateful Dead, where people like take their entire summer and just follow them around everywhere they go. It's wild.
And do you know there's a crossover? This I did not know. I like the Grateful Dead. I'm not a true Deadhead. Haven't gone to the concerts. I'm not a big Grateful Dead. I have friends who are hardcore. There are Grateful Dead fans, like full-on Deadheads, go to the concerts, who are raving Little House on the Prairie. Bonnethead fans and Little House fans are Deadhead fans. And I actually have a couple of T-shirts, and it's like the Bonnethead thing. It's like Bonnethead, and it's Grateful Dead. So, yes, we're exploring this because a couple people going, do you know there's like a Grateful Dead Little House on the Prairie crossover? And I'm like, that's the weirdest thing I've ever heard, and we want to get in on that. We need to meet those people. That would be fun.
There's a certain element, obviously, of nostalgia. It's part of our lives, especially if you experienced when you were young because you were young on the show. I experienced it when I was young. I was born in 72, and I grew up watching it. We read the books in school, in my elementary school. We did a whole dinner where we brought in, like, we all made food and things from that and had like our own picnic. It was part of our heritage. So there's the nostalgia factor. But do you think part of it is also I just want a simpler life where we don't have the pressures of the world. There's no cell phones on the show, no internet, no real technology. It's just simple life and people just learning to get along and survive.
We didn't get like a telephone. There's finally like a telephone switch. Where was it, like the 5th or 6th season or something? They get the head. Oh, Walnut Grove. But that's like it's the simplicity. And Little House on the Prairie, the entity itself is like that. When Laura wrote the books, that was the 1930s, like 1932, I think the first one, the 30s, height of the Great Depression. And these books came out, and it's funny for us to say, hearkening back to a simpler time. People in the 30s said, well, my grandmother told me, when they were younger, they made all their food from scratch. They didn't have all this canned food in these newfangled refrigerators, which were becoming popular. There was no frozen food. In the 30s, it was frozen food, a lot of canned food. And there were people saying, we used to go out and pump the water and milk the cows ourselves. We didn't live in the city. And Laura starts writing about this simpler time, and the Ingalls are going through a lot. They don't have a lot of money. So people in the Depression started reading these, going, well, the Ingalls have it worse. We could, there's all the nostalgia for their grandmother's day, and as well as seeing the Ingalls survive even more terrible circumstances than they had. And then what do? We have the TV show come out in 1974 at the height of the recession. They're rationing gasoline, and it was, people having meatless Tuesdays. It was ridiculous. We're having like a mini depression. We had a terrible recession in the 70s. People lost their jobs. There was no money. And oh, look, Little House on the Prairie's on. And that's what people, the adults watching, the kids are tuning in. The adults are laughing because in those early episodes, I need to buy a slate and the pencil's 2 whole pennies. And Pa going, slate pencils, 2 pennies now. What are we going to, when will this inflation end? That the slate is how much? And everyone at home's going, that's what they were playing off of. And so again, under hard times. And now here we are now where there's enormous turmoil everywhere you look. And what do? We've got the streaming, and there's now going to be a new Netflix reimagining, as you were show. They keep saying not a reboot because, well, if this was Star Wars, it would be a prequel. They're going back to when Laura was really young. But Netflix is doing a based on the books prequel, basically. Laura's a child. Again, we're having Little House on the Prairie again for a new generation. Well, because we need it apparently.
I want to talk to you about that because I have some feelings about that.
It's very controversial. Yes.
But before we get to that, I was thinking about something, how the books, how the show that we get is not what the books are. It's based on, and, they get to Walnut Grove, Pa builds a house there. That's where they just stay. And in real life, they moved around quite a bit. If I'm having to find a piece of land and I'm cutting down 60, 70 trees and I'm not moving and doing that again. Like, I'm just not doing that.
And most sane, sensible people there, that's what they did stay. They went, they homestead. Also, in order to get your money back, that was the whole thing of the homesteading was, we will let you take this land, and if you can prove up, i.e. build a farm, grow some crops, not die, and it was like 2 years or something, 2 or more years, they set a time period, and basically was, if you didn't starve to death or get killed by, if the treaty held up and the natives didn't come and say, actually, we're going to murder you now. If you didn't get killed or do something stupid and kill yourself trying to plow a field, because it was really hard and there were city people who didn't know what they were doing, and you don't starve to death or freeze to death in the first winter, and you are still alive in 2 years with a crop and you're staying, it's yours. And it's thousands and thousands of dollars worth of acreage and land free. So people said, this is great. Many of them weren't up to it. They were not physically strong enough to build a house and a farm. And many of them thought they could do it in the first winter hit, and they either didn't live through winter, they died, or they packed up and got out of there as soon as it got cold, or they stayed for a while, and like the Ingalls, the crops failed and they nearly starved. The Ingalls almost starved to death. It's terrible in the book so many times. Walnut Grove, they're not doing that well. There was the Locust, which is in the books, and we did it in the show. But in real life, it was so bad. There's these chapters in the book about the Ingalls who kept saying, we don't need charity, getting charity. They went to the church and there were gifts. The gifts weren't from the neighbors. The gifts came in a box, a crate, shipped from another town because other towns had heard about the terrible disaster in Walnut Grove with the locusts and that people were starving and were sending supplies. So it was that bad. And so they were really on their last legs when Charles's cousins showed up. The brother, the sister, and the cousins came and said, "We get in the car. We're getting you out of here." And they went to South Dakota. And it was crazy because in real life, like, they went to Kansas and went back to Wisconsin. So really the first book is the second book. And then they went to Burr Oak, Iowa, but it was so awful, Laura didn't want to talk about it. So they skipped that. And then they wind up in South Dakota, where again, there's a horrible long winter. They almost die. They're not very good with the crops. They almost die. And this keeps happening. When Charles stops farming and gets a job in town, starts running a little store, they suddenly have money. They live in town. They have money. They're able to afford to send Mary to blind school. They have like a harpsichord and a thing. They buy musical instruments. I have a cat, by the way. Hello. When in the show, they're like struggling. How are we going to send Mary to school? In the books, they're actually putting together a trousseau of beautiful clothes for her to wear at blind school and a bunch of stuff. They have enough money to do that. They're not starving to death anymore. But they left them in Walnut Grove because for television, having a little town with a teacher and a doctor and a church, then you have somewhere to go. It's good for making episodic television. So we'll just put them in Walnut Grove and stay there. Well, but in real life, they were out of. Kitty, could you not this? Hang on. Now we've talked about this. We have talked about this. She almost knocked over my Nellie doll.
Oh no!
I know you like that.
I love that.
Flying cat. Here, come down here. Come down here. Yes. Now say hi to the nice man.
Hello.
There she is. This is Roswell. No, okay, go down then. You don't. I know you want to sit up on the top of the chair, but I have to talk to the nice people.
But I think too, it would probably be, I mean, you think about the expense of building new sets and
Right.
changing the look of the town and all that. Then you've also
Move
got
every
the
2 years.
character arcs, and if they moved away and there's no Nellie Olson, then well, that was great, but now we got to
Well,
bring
yeah,
somebody
and
else in.
even
And
Laura did that. They go to
Mhm.
South Dakota. Of course, there's no Nellie Olson. So Laura decides to, in their books, I mean, she lies in her book. She changes timelines of people.
Sure,
There
yeah.
was a girl named Genevieve Masters in South Dakota who was very difficult. She just has Nellie miraculously reappear in a puff of smoke
Mhm.
and basically based Nellie on like 3 different people and decided people said, we want Nellie. And she went, well, I guess I'm going to write her in. I guess Nellie's coming back, even though she totally didn't. That didn't actually happen.
Well, I think the
Yeah.
thing is that it's kind of the difference between reality and understanding that the books are really just kind of loosely based on her real
Novel.
life. There's a lot of it in there, but it's not like, here's my diary. This is what
Right.
happened to me.
She wrote a manuscript that was supposed to be
Mhm.
her book, that was her autobiography, and she couldn't sell it. And that's the one some academia press Pioneer Girl, and she did, and they published it with footnotes as an academic thing. And of course,
Right.
they couldn't keep it on the shelves because everybody wanted it. But she wrote it, and it didn't sell. And it was her daughter Rose, who was published, who said, if you broke this down and broke it out and children's, but you could do the books for little girls. And of course, gazillions of dollars later, it was a huge hit. But
Yeah.
she thought it would be a diary, and it didn't work as a
Mhm.
story. And that's why they're in the historical fiction section.
Right. Yeah. And I think about a movie like Amadeus, which I love the movie, but there's so little reality in that
If that did
movie,
not happen, no.
Yeah. And I think there's kind of that impression of we think we're learning history when we're really not. We're just being entertained based on
Yeah,
a historical figure, you
it's
know.
loosely based on it. And so the books, I mean, now what's kooky about our show is we sometimes snuck real life in. When Laura wrote the books, she did not write about her baby brother dying.
Mhm.
Because the Ingalls did have a son and he did
Yeah.
die. She did not run away to a mountain and meet Ernest Borgnine, but they did have a baby brother and he did die tragically.
Mhm.
She left that out of the books because, well, it was still very traumatic for the entire family.
Sure.
But we
Yeah.
worked it into the show. We
Mhm.
did have them have a little boy, and that
Yeah.
happened. So we kind of kept inserting real life into the thing.
I wonder, was there anyone that was in possession or ownership of the rights of her books that you had to
Of
go
course.
to get approval to say, we'd like to do this? Is this okay?
Not inch by inch like that. What happened is that Laura Ingalls left everything to her daughter Rose Wilder, and
Mhm.
Rose Wilder left everything, strangely, she didn't have children, to a friend, a guy she called Roger McBride. And
Mhm.
Roger McBride was the guy holding the keys when Ed Friendly, who had produced Laugh-In, of all things, said, I need the rights to these books. I'm making this show, and got the rights from him and licensed it out. And then he made the show with Michael, and they had the rights. And then they split. They had a big blow up and split halfway through the show. And that's why it was all very weird. We really started diverging from plot lines about then, because like,
Mhm.
and that apparently there was a thing of Laura's wedding because of Almanzo. That's like those are book rights, and he had to retain those. So there was a big kerfuffle. It's like, well, if you want to shoot that episode where she gets married, you have to write a check, and because Friendly they got the rights, so they sorted
Wow.
it out, and we managed to finish the show. But yeah, once they had them, they were given a lot of leeway of that they could change stuff and put stuff in. It was
Mhm.
pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean, you think that there would have to be some kind of, you can't just do whatever you want, even though you have like a certain approval. There's some things that you don't want the character to be seen a certain way, or they
Right.
want to preserve a certain element of her
There were
person.
rules like that. I think
Mhm.
HarperCollins, and then of course when Ed Friendly bought them, he was very protective of the whole image. And in fact, what we have now, he said Trip Friendly and the whole Friendly Family Productions, these are the rights holders who made the deal with Netflix who are doing the show. When people say, will Netflix be bad for Laura? No, because it's the people who have been rigorously guarding Laura Ingalls Wilder's image for
Mhm.
decades are the main people behind it. So they're like,
Right.
no, 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 no. This is all going to be straight up by the books.
Well, and I think that that's wise just from a an acceptance standpoint, because like you said, 18,000 people made a pilgrimage out to Simi Valley to
Yeah,
meet you guys. what would happen if you did a show that was not up to their expectations? They're going to crucify it. It's going to
They
be
burned
canceled like
down the
3 episodes
studio.
in. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
exactly.
so that's, and I remember talking to Drew, but said, yeah, if you have to do it right, it's like when they made Lord of the Rings, they had to have all these men. When they did Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit, they went, okay, if we leave a character out or something, that they could burn down the theater. It's like, oh, these movies are going to be really long and be
Yeah,
multi-part because if we leave something out, there's a whole segment of fans going, nope, you left that out. That's it. That you're dead, and
yeah.
we'll go mad. And I said, it's like making Lord of the Rings. You're gonna have to
Yeah.
do what is in the book. Yeah.
What I learned, I did a podcast on the band Uriah Heep, and I did an episode on every song they ever recorded. And what I learned was that people are very possessive over the things that they hold dear in entertainment.
Bit,
You know,
a
if
little
it,
bit.
you could go to somebody and say, you know what, I didn't like Laura in that episode. That, oh no,
Don't
Laura
say
was
that.
exactly who she needed to be, and they will
Don't say
listen.
that. Don't you say that. Yeah.
Yeah, they're very like, don't you dare have an opinion that differs from mine.
Well, this new show has triggered people in that way. We have two groups. There are people, and I pulled because I'm doing my show, Confessions of Prairie Bitch, in New
Mhm.
York and Atlanta and Nashville, Louisville, and in Nashville, it's like who here is yay more prairie, and who here is don't touch it. And there's a lot of people like no. Don't touch it. The '70s show was the only show. There can be only one Highlander. There can be only
Mhm.
one. I can't have another show. And I said, there's been an awful lot of Star Treks
True.
and will always be Shatner and Nimoy. But personally, I like that Captain Picard exists in this universe. I
Mhm.
want the other shows, and it's okay. There can be more, and they're going back to the books. It's going to be faithful to the books. It's going to be
Yeah.
great. Um, but it's just some people are like, no, this is the one I grew up on,
Mhm.
and the thing is we're continuing to we're streaming on multiple platforms, and I'm a fan of rising tide floats all boats.
Mhm.
People, I assume, will watch this new show, and they just showed the people of the Ingalls, and they're adorable. And yes, Pa is going to be hot and adorable.
Mhm.
They're going to watch this on Netflix, and then they're going to change over to Amazon to go watch our show again. So they're
Yes.
just going to watch more of us. So
And they'll
I'm
buy
like,
the
it's
books,
fine.
and yeah, they'll buy the books. They'll buy in
And then they'll buy more
every
books.
different cover of paperback, and I
and
think
and they'll
I think
buy
it's great.
all of the cast books, and then they'll as we're getting now, they will interview all of us from our show to discuss
Mhm.
the new show, and this
Sure.
is only going to escalate. My God, they've not even started filming the darn thing. Every
Right.
people act like it's coming out tomorrow. They're saying like, I don't know, December, January, at the early things. They haven't started shooting it. So when they start shooting it, I imagine we'll have a whole new kerfuffle of publicity. When
Oh
they
yeah.
start casting people besides the Ingalls, it'll blow up. I don't know. The day they cast the Nellie Olson, I'm going to have to hide under a bed. My phone's going to like explode uh,
I'm
for
already
my
waiting for
opinion on that.
the Family Feud episode of New Little House
Yes,
versus Old Little House, because that has to happen.
we would do that. See, that's what we want. We want the old cast and the new cast to
Mhm.
like interact. We're like, call us when you kids get famous and need to come do like an autograph show because we're coming. We'll all do this together. We'll have events together. We're like inviting them to the table. And we're there to support them because we know that being on a show like Little House on the Prairie can completely alter your entire life in ways you
Yes.
did not imagine.
Yes.
So all of us from our show are offering our support. You can get our phone numbers from Trip Friendly. We absolutely are
Mhm.
there for this cast as they go through this process of becoming the
Yeah.
Ingalls and the Prairie Folk.
And the additional pressures because they're following one of the most historic and beloved shows
Yeah,
ever.
shoes.
You know, I mean, if somebody were to do a Three's Company reboot, I think there would be some element, for example,
Yeah.
like some element, it would
Mhm.
not be what we're seeing, but I
Not
have a,
this. This
no,
is ooh. This
yeah,
is a thing.
but I have a little bit different take on what I'm concerned about working on the show or not. And I'm curious to get your thoughts on this because if I were to pull up a clip right now on YouTube and I play the opening song and you get these beautiful strings and, you get this wonderful theme,
French horn. French
French
horn.
horn. Yep.
Yeah.
And your husband's a composer, so he'd probably appreciate this. But and you also, you start watching the video and it's just got this was shot on film. It has a certain grainy quality to it. It puts you
35
in that
millimeter
time.
Panavision. Yes. Big
This
old Panavision camera. Yes.
this is going to be crystal clear, pristine sound, crystal clear video. You're not going to feel like you're back in old times. And I think that maybe subconsciously that's going to be kind of a disconnect for me.
Is that going to be weird if it's all digital
Yeah,
and the sound is perfect? So yeah, it's not gonna crackle when it goes to the projector, as it were. Um,
right.
it's gonna is it gonna be digital and it will be too weird? I don't know. Maybe they're gonna go crazy and shoot it on Panavision. What did we have Quentin Tarantino people like to go shoot on film. Maybe,
True.
but I think it is going to be digital. Now they've also already people said, well, they're too pretty. God forbid someone should be pretty. They're
Yeah.
too pretty. And I'm like, well, first of all, did you see Michael Landon? You couldn't get much prettier than that. Thank you. And he was the real Charles Ingalls was not pretty.
No.
Nice man, not pretty.
Quite the
Michael was
beard, though.
pretty. The big old beard. Michael was pretty and knew it and worked it. And we were all okay with that. And I can tell you when you see the pictures of the real Ingalls, because, well, first of all, they didn't wear makeup. Photography was a very primitive process and they were hardened pioneers. None of they're not like lookers like Hollywood. You look at Melissa Sue Anderson as Mary and Melissa Gilbert and Karen. We're all stunning. I mean, I saw a picture of the real Nellie Owens. Okay, I can pretty much easily say I think I'm prettier than her from a conventional look standpoint without a big stretch.
Without a doubt,
because we're actors. We're all prettier than these people who fought for survival in the 1800s and look a little hard as they would. As my great grandmother no doubt did.
Right. But just
it's
to make you feel a little bit better about that, Alison, if you weren't pretty, you wouldn't have gotten cast into every other thing that you did. The Love Boat, all the game shows, like they wouldn't have cared about you. And I hate to say that because it should be about your talent, and you're a very talented actress, but you have to have that in Hollywood. You have to have certain looks to get those kind of roles. You're not getting a guest star on the Love Boat if people don't believe they're going to fall in love with you.
I got Love Boat 100% because of Miss Jill Whalen, because I didn't get a romance on the Love Boat. I didn't get a romance. I got no romance. My Fantasy Island was about human trafficking. I was sold to Lucky Eddie. Love Boat, I was the horrible girl because Jill Whalen, Captain Stubing's daughter there, she went to school with Melissa Gilbert over at Buckley. So she'd heard legend about me, endless stories. And she's sitting there. They would have occasional read-throughs with the cast to go, here's the upcoming episodes, what's going on. And she said, are you getting Alison Arngrim, who is Nellie Olson, to come be Becky Daniels? And I said, what? She literally just finished doing Little House, so she's available. Ha, ha, ha. Nellie is awful. Becky Daniels, spoiled rotten. It's a gimme. Yuck, yuck that you would have her. And she said, besides, Melissa keeps telling me about her and she sounds really fun. And I would like to have her on the set for a week and hang out with her because Melissa gets to hang out with her all the time. And they're like, you raise excellent points. And they brought me, and next thing I know, I'm Becky Daniels with Nancy Culp's man. So my great dad, every time I see Jill, I'm like, thank you. Jill Whalen got me the job on Love Boat. I didn't get a romance. I was really bummed. I was 19. I totally could have, but I was busy playing a horrible idiot adolescent child star.
Yeah, and that had to be, I mean, obviously still that's what people see you as, but that had to be really difficult and why you probably weren't offered more things because it's kind of hard to transition people out of certain roles. Like I look at people who have been on a TV show for, 7, 8 years and they've played whatever character it is. It's got to be really hard to go into something else and be anybody else. The Office, for example, to take Pam and put Jenna Fisher in a role that's going to be anything but this sweet, demure little Pam. You can't make her a sex pot or something. How do you do that?
Right. Typecasting is real. It's, people do. And in the dark old days, pre-internet, when everybody could see who they were and hear them talk and go on TikTok, you just went, that must be it. And people were very set in their ways in the 70s and people were very typecast. And so it was a challenge for everybody. And, sounds like a joke, but it's true. My agent actually did submit me for some part in the 80s and they wouldn't see me. And he said, why not? And they said, well, this show takes place in present day. Right. And he said, she's not Pioneer Barbie. She doesn't come with the dress. What the hell are you people talking about? But that the people's mindset was, and yes, I've been, I got a lot of calls for bitchy characters. Now, of course, I love that somebody calls with a bitchy character, and I go like, yes. What time do we start? But it absolutely, people had it just drilled into their heads. And our show also, we were like really suspending disbelief. The number of people said those were TV shows. You guys were real. That's how it felt to them. And I'm like, yay! As an actor, you want people to really believe it, but then what do you do when they do?
Well, it's kind of a compliment in a way, right? Because they can't see you outside of that, which shows how good you are at portraying that. But at the same point, it's like
apparently.
I can work in locations that aren't a field and a mercantile.
I can't. I really, and prefer them.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not required in my rider to churn my own butter or anything like that. Like I can get store-bought stuff. It's
Rider.
fine.
I think I need a rider that I will not churn butter. Might be a thing. Yeah.
Yeah, they just give you a ball of string and they're like, "Here, go make your own clothing," and we're
It's
not going
pretty
to bring
much
you in
that.
for a fitting. Yeah,
Yeah, in the 1970s, 80s, this is where people's heads were literally at. It was pretty bad.
it baffles me to see how people can be so. I guess maybe it's a confirmation bias thing. Like they don't want to think of you doing anything outside of that character because it somehow sullens the fact that this is a show and this is acting. They want to think that they're actually
Yeah.
watching real lives because if you love a show, and I'm sure that there's shows that you've experienced with as a fan of entertainment where
Mhm.
you watch these people week after week, they become your family. They become
Yes, and with Little House. Whew.
more stakes with them than you do people you know in real life. And so I guess, I can understand to an extent why you become so possessed, but but at some point you've got to step outside of it and go, this is a script. This did not really happen. These are real people that
It's not
drive a
real.
car home. They're not brought to
They went
their,
back to their air-conditioned apartments after that. But it's true. I mean, with Little House, we do have people say, "You are my family." The
yeah,
number of people who had difficult childhoods and said, "If only Ma and Pa were my parents." I mean, that was a big thing. But okay,
yeah.
okay. On Facebook, you could go right now and look on Facebook when sometimes they'll put up pictures, especially these ones, marvelous pictures I've been finding from the 80s of us at like parties.
Mm.
And there's like me. Oh, there's one they run all the time. It was a Christmas benefit for Child Help actually out in Barstow, and we're all hanging out in this field. And it's me and Melissa Gilbert, Steve Tracy, who's Percival,
Mm.
Jonathan's Jonathan Gilbert, Melissa's brother, and Jonathan's boyfriend at the time, Rad Daly. Remember
Oh
Rad
yeah.
Daly? He
Hmm.
was great. And Rad Daly, and we're all just cavorting in our cute little red Christmas sweaters and jeans outfits. But it's so totally 80s. I've got this striped sweater. Several women went, "Oh my God, I had that sweater." That was like, was that 1982? I had that sweater. And but there's many people who actually will comment, "I feel weird seeing them in their own clothes. I know they were people, and I know these are their own clothes, and they were simply going to a Christmas party. And of course, they wore their own clothes, and they're clearly friends outside of work here.
Hmm.
But it's jarring to me that I'm seeing them out of costume." And they'll put up pictures of us from other shows. They'll just put up various pictures of us as ourselves. And there's even people who go, I can't look at these pictures. I have trouble looking at these photos of these real humans with their actual families in their actual clothes
Well,
because and
they
it's
want to
just
be
crazy.
in the show with you, right? They want you to take them into the show. Like when people go
Yes,
to Disney and have the Star Wars experience and they walk on board the
yes.
Millennium Falcon, that's what they're really looking for, right?
They do. Well, that's why, I mean, they love See Me so much because we did do recreations of the sets. We did um the flats
Hmm.
painted beautiful like 3D pop out paintings of these paintings of all of the buildings done up on the hills where they were in See Me. And then in the big studio area where we had people come in for the reunion, we had these artists actually build a small mercantile set, a Little House set, and the church school set, and people could walk in and sit in one of the pews and take their picture. They could sit at the Ingalls dining table. They could be at the. People went bonkers
Yeah.
because they were now physically in that space
Hmm.
of the set, and it was just like So yeah, people they would like us to show up in costume and then take them away to the 1870s and live happily ever after. And I don't blame them. What a
Hmm.
great idea.
I just want those prices. I want peppermint to be a
Yes.
penny, and
Oh God, yes.
that
But
would be
brown
that'd be a
eggs
good
are
day.
still 3 cents less a dozen. We still had an issue with the egg prices even then.
That's yeah. I don't know if this is a popular opinion or not, but growing up watching the show, I always thought that Laura would end up with Willie.
Really? Which
Hmm.
of course wouldn't work because that would be a difficult. There's acting and there's acting. It is her brother. That would be like, eh. And she also found him annoying, as people find their younger brothers. She
Yeah.
often asked me if I would like to take him home and live at my house. She was like, you can have him. Really, just take him in the car. No one will notice. Um,
Right.
but you darling child. But yeah, they in personality, and that's probably why. Because they were brother and sister and lived together, you were probably picking up on the fact they had
Mhm.
very similar senses of humor and personality. But because, yes, they were living in the same house.
Right.
um, yeah, and I mean, we knew Almanzo. I mean,
Mhm.
Dean, and since he's not here,
Yeah.
Talk about one of the hardest jobs in show business. Everyone's waiting for Almanzo. They all know. They read the books. Her name's Laura Ingalls Wilder. They
Mhm.
know Almanzo's showing up. They know from the history books and the photos, if they've been to the house in Missouri, they know who he is.
Mhm.
And also, they've watched little Laura grow up from a baby. She's still
Yeah.
really young. And it's a bunch of teenage girls who are going, am I going to fall in love with the man who they select to play Almanzo? So talk about here's a job. Are you sure you want to take this? I mean, that was a very brave dude to step into
Yeah.
that role. That was a lot to ask of somebody.
Well, on top of that, you're walking into working with the legendary Michael Landon. I mean, you're walking on to one of the biggest successes. I mean, just the pressures of even
Already,
being
the show's been
into,
going for years. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
a tight-knit group, and you're like, how am I going to fit in? What if they don't like me? There's so
Terrifying.
much. Yeah, so much. And I know that that takes a certain confidence and resolve, I think, to be able to even just say, yeah, send me in for that audition because
Right.
I'm willing to walk
The
into that
nerve.
situation.
Well, he was just frightened out of his wits. He has talked about that. On the one hand, he knew it was a great show. He'd seen it. His agent was a huge fan. And she said, if I could ever get you on Little House on the Prairie, that would be
Yeah.
the thing to get. And then she's like, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. I got an audition for Little House. And it's Almanzo. This is like, his agent was dancing on the ceiling. And yeah, he was intimidated. And then the
Mhm.
weirdest thing is he found, I'm doing praise part of the interview. He talked to a friend who knew about Michael Landon and his audition process. And he said, oh, yeah, don't act. Like, wait, what? No acting allowed. Like they'll let him
Yeah.
see act.
Mhm.
And it's true. On Little House, we went for a lot of very naturalistic performances, which was, again, not really totally the style at the time. Again, against
Right.
everything
Yeah.
that was happening. This
Mhm.
supernatural, kitchen sink realism. And it's like, don't act. Don't put on airs or really just be as simple and straightforward and clean a performance as you possibly can. Do not act. And that just frightened me. He's like, now what do I do? Now I got to go and stand in front of Michael and like, don't act. What? Ah. So yeah.
Right.
Oh, he was terrified.
Yeah. What
And then, of
acting
course, he
school?
loves him.
Yeah. What acting school do you go to learn how to not act?
I just paid all this money to go to college and study drama. Like, don't act.
Right.
um, so yeah, and then it's like, okay, I'm here, Laura. Oh, how old is she again? Wow. And I mean, he was 23 and a young 23, like 23 going on 18, like, it's the
Yeah.
baby. And he'd done the movie Forever, where he played the ultimate first boyfriend, the Judy Blume
Right.
thing. So
Mhm.
that was perfect. It's like, we got the guy who is Judy Blume, the first boyfriend forever. So he had all the credentials to do this,
Mhm.
and he had this quality, and he still does, of being very sort of earnest and gentlemanly. And I tease him mercilessly. He still blushes. You
Oh
can make
yeah.
Dean Butler
Yeah.
blush.
Mhm.
The women come up to him at the autograph shows, like, oh, he's still so handsome, and he's like hot pink. And he had this quality that you weren't scared. You weren't scared like, oh well, the teenage girl's gonna be going out with this guy. Well, they're like, well, yeah, it's Almanzo, which is interesting because in the books, it's totally in the show. The father, Pa, says, no, this is terrible. He's too old. Oh my God, what's he doing? You can't go out with this man. You can't marry him. And the mother's like, they're in love. These things happen. But in the books, it's the other way. In the books, Pa's like, Almanzo's a great catch. And Ma's like, she's 15. What are you talking about? But in the books, Almanzo had saved them all from starvation.
Mhm.
Literally, it's the long winter. They're dying. The whole town is dying. There's no food. They're freezing. The train can't get through with any supplies. And it's a
Mhm.
dead of winter, and they've run out of food. And Almanzo and a guy named Cap Garland get on a sled and go through the blizzard to the next town because they heard there's a guy. I don't know how they did this. There were no phones. They found
Right.
some guy who had wheat, who had food. And they didn't even know if he was going to sell it to him or give it to him. Might not work. They got on a sled and schlepped out through, 40 feet of snow to this guy's house and said, look, everybody's starving. Can we get some food from you? And they brought it back, and everybody was able to like grind little things of wheat and make it. I mean, it was her subsistence living, but they didn't die of starvation. So
Mhm.
Almanzo literally saved them.
Yeah.
And Charles knew that. And there
Mhm.
was also a whole thing where Charles found out early in the starvation period that Almanzo had a little extra wheat himself, and Almanzo gave it to him. So his daughter wouldn't be alive if it had not been for Almanzo. They'd have all
Right.
died over the winter.
Right.
So when Almanzo says, "Can I walk her home from church?" and he's absolutely being a complete gentleman, correct? I just walk her home from church. like that's what you did then, not lay very polite with the parents there. Pa was like, yes, have it. Are you kidding?
But on
And
TV, that
Lauren's
doesn't
like,
work, right?
yeah,
Because
and
on
Lauren's like,
TV,
who?
right, you
Yeah,
got to
it would
have
be weird on
dad.
TV. On
Yeah.
TV, when you're seeing them and they're so young, it would not work. But quite sensibly, Pa said, well, if she's going to marry somebody, maybe, hey, the guy who can go find food when everyone's starving to death would probably be the guy you want to be married to. Like, that might make sense.
Seems
And
wise.
ultimately, truly, Laura did marry him, and he was a good catch and kept them from starving and was a better
Right.
farmer than her dad was.
Yeah, and it's so funny. You think about those times, and it's like you're asking permission to walk her home from church. And nowadays,
Yeah.
people just pull up, they text you, "I'm here," and you come out to
Yeah.
there's no door opening, there's no polite conversation. It's just, "I'm here, come out when you're
Yeah.
ready." You know, it's
And
such a different
the
world.
Welcome Church, they lived across the street.
Yeah,
It was like
right.
20 yards.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
wasn't like a long walk either. It was over
right.
there.
Yeah, they're not in the the Sahara. They're not out in the African jungle where a lion just might come out and eat her. I mean, it was pretty safe,
They're
you
not
know.
parking in a car. He's not like, I want to put it in a car. Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Right.
it did. Yeah. As boyfriends go for your young daughter, Almanza was pretty safe and about as good a catch as you were going to get. And
Yeah.
so in the show, they made it different, that the father was saying no and the mother was yes. And they made it that it was Laura who was after him, which makes it much more like, okay, I guess I can see this, and easier for people. But when you think about, when you read the books, you kind of go, yeah, well, your daughter should marry Almanza. He's a
Yeah.
good guy.
Kind of hard for anyone else to come in and make an argument that they're a better catch.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
like, what did you do? Save the whole town from starvation. Oh, well,
I brought you some milkweed and
I need some flowers. Yeah,
right.
it's not the same.
When I had interviewed Dean shortly before his book came out, I was delighted to find, because I hadn't listened to any interviews with him. I try to listen normally to interviews with people. Like with you, it was so easy because you're everywhere. And I listened to, I don't know, 20 or so interviews with you. I think I listened to like 40 interviews before I had Dee Wallace on the show. And she's awesome. But I was so delighted to find that when I was young and watching Little House, I always thought, I bet he's a really nice guy in real life. And he absolutely is. I was so
Oh my
delighted to find
God,
that
isn't
he
he
was like
though?
that. Yeah.
Isn't he?
Yes. Yeah. He was supposed to be here with us today, full disclosure, but he had a power outage. And so Harlan, the greatest publicist that I've ever met,
Isn't he
uh,
beautiful?
yeah, he's amazing. He called me to let me know what was going on. So I'll try and reschedule something with Dean. But I always have such a good time talking to you. I'm kind of glad I got you to
You're
myself
fun.
for this time. And as always, the time goes so quickly. And I got to tell
Yeah.
you, the
Ooh,
first
what's it like?
time,
It's almost 4. Yeah,
almost, the first time you came on the show, in a rare
when
occurrence,
was
I
that?
had
God, how long ago was that?
7 years, I think, 6 or 7 years.
God,
Yeah, because I'm in my 8th year now.
good
Um,
Lord. Yeah.
I had like 3 pages of questions, potential
Oh
things to
my.
talk to you about, and I think I asked you one, and then the conversation just went from there, which was fine.
Stream of
After
God.
that, but normally I didn't write questions down. I was like, okay, here's the thing we have to talk about whenever you're here to
Yeah,
promote.
yeah.
And then it's just kind of, I would write some things down. With you, it was just so natural, such great conversation. But I wrote down 2 words for this episode that I'm going to say, and I cannot wait to just get your reaction because it's completely
Terrified.
random. I'm
Oh
sure
no.
this is going to bring up a specific memory for you, or maybe not. Cinnamon chicken.
Ah, yes. Well, of course, and you're going to have Dean here. I love that episode. And, it was his birthday the other day. And
Yes.
I said, happy birthday to a good sport, my cinnamon cayenne chicken partner. Um, we had so much fun doing that episode. For those of you at home going, what? Yes, the episode where Nellie and Mrs. Olson think, well, this Almanza's a good catch. We'll be having him. And so Mrs. Olson tries to steal him for me. I'm kind of like, if she goes after him, come to dinner. And she asked him what his favorite food is, and he says cinnamon chicken. And everybody kind of goes, what the heck is cinnamon chicken? There is such a thing. I think what they were really doing is, I'm way too into food. There's a really old recipe called Country Captain, and it's based on actually East Indian food in the
Okay.
recipe. And so there's cinnamon and other spices. It's like a Southern American version of Indian cooking.
Okay.
But cinnamon chicken's a thing. I make a lovely cinnamon chicken. It's with flour, like chicken breast dredged in flour, but with cinnamon and spices and then fried. It's lovely.
Mm.
So he comes over cinnamon chicken, and of course Laura she cooks and replaces it with cayenne pepper. So we're sitting there, and the big question we always get was there cayenne pepper on the chicken in the sea? No. As Dean said, you don't want the actors out of control. You can't choke the actors to death while you're filming them. You have to have the actors decide when this hacking thing is going to happen. You can't just spring that on them. Right. So we sat there, we talked about like, okay, so we're going to do this. Do we need any sense memory here? We took the regular black pepper shaker and shook like one shake of just like, so we could smell the pepper on that one. Yeah, okay, I'm good. You good? Yeah, I got it. And then we began to eat it, and it was our prop men were the best cooks. It was perfectly delicious, lovely baked chicken. And then we gradually went and then lost it. We were just like heaving and hacking by the time we got to the water pump. It was we just went all out. I almost drowned because Michael had a thing, so I'm chugging the water, and Michael decided this was a really good piece of footage here, and really funny. He goes, no, don't put the glass down, because I couldn't swallow it all. I put it down. He goes, no, refill her glass, keep it rolling, like turn the camera off. I need you to chug that whole glass. Do not put it down. It's funnier. Just chug the whole glass. And he says, if water comes out your nose, water comes out your nose. Your eyes are bulgy. If water starts coming out your eyeballs, your nose, out the sides of your mouth, it can run out the sides of your mouth. I don't care. But do not put that glass down on the table till it's empty. I don't care if you're drowning. I don't care if water comes out. It'll be brilliant. And he said, do not let her stop. He said, keep it rolling. And if she stops drinking before that glass is empty, refill her glass, and we will stay here all day until you. And I was like, so I did, and water was coming out the sides of my mouth if I couldn't chug it all, and out my nose. And he was like, yep. It was like a chug, a contest. He was right, of course, because when I'm doing it, my eyes bulge out of my head, and I'm like totally red in the face, and it's hysterical. It's cinematic gold. So of course, we did do it, but there was no real cayenne pepper. There was acting.
Of course, yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean, that's what you are. You're an actor. So it's your job to kind of simulate and turn fake into reality. That's really what an actor
does. And Dean
does.
And I were so good that 50 years later, people go, are you guys sure? Because you guys are going red in the face. You look like you're dying, and you're telling us there's nothing on. I went back and finished that chicken when I was done. It was so good. Yeah. But yeah, we look so distraught. People are like, wow. You guys are that good? Like, yes, we're that good.
Well, there's things you can do. I mean, you can hold your breath, and you can kind of push the blood up to your face to kind of, give you that redness. I mean, it's a lot to go through to simulate that, just to pull off that gag.
And you start coughing, and you start going, or you start hacking and coughing. The color comes up. We've all eaten something too spicy at least once in our lives. We've all had that plate of Thai food. We're like, oops. So yeah, you just yeah.
Well, the very first time I ever went to sushi was with my friend that does the art for my album covers, and then my tattoo artist, and never had it before. I think I had like one piece before I had tried it, but I said, what's this little green lump? And my tattoo artist, who, keep in mind, I trust her to drill into my body thousands of times with a sharp needle, penetrating my skin, and I volunteer for this. And she goes, oh, that's wasabi. And I said, okay. She goes, you just pop that in your mouth.
Oh, that's evil. That bad person.
I'm pretty sure I met Jesus that day.
Yeah,
he was very nice.
My mother did that, except my mother was a maniac. My mother, we used to call her Rasputin. My mother, who did like spicy food, like stupid spicy food. She'd go to Indian restaurants and say 10 stars, and they'd look at this tiny little, really? They'd make it like you make for your grandmother. And she wasn't kidding. She was sitting with a group of us having one of those big platters of 8,000 pieces of sushi and the giant golf ball of wasabi. And she'd had wasabi. She knew. She was chattering away, had a couple sakis, I think, in the story. And she went, la, 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 la. So as I said to him, and she reached over, she picks up the wasabi. She's not looking. And she just picks up the wasabi. And she says, so I said to her, blah, blah, blah. And everyone's watching the wasabi. Like, no, she's not going to do it. And ta-ta-ta-ta-ta, pop, pops it in her mouth and chews it. And everyone at the table freezes. And she just goes, so anyway, that's what I did when, like, nothing. That she didn't sweat. And I remember my boyfriend at the time went, I'm terrified of your mother now.
Yeah.
I don't want to start anything with her.
Wow. That's wild. I love it. I will never test how far I can push
Yeah.
that because I
You ate
learned
a
my
hunk of
lesson.
wasabi. You went blind and
Yeah.
deaf and saw
Yeah.
God. And yes, because it's that spicy. Yeah,
It could have been an episode of Little House. I went
It could
blind and yeah.
And, and we've all done that. We've all said, well, maybe the medium spice. Oh, give me the extra spicy, and then we go like, oh, that was a mistake, and your mouth goes numb. We've all done it at some. So
Sure.
yeah. So Dean and I, we just went, yes, I remember the time, and that's acted. Yeah, we were able to conjure that up, and we look good doing it.
Oh yeah. Well, the scene came out amazing, and as I hate to do this because I could talk to you for days. As we wrap up, so you've got the 50 for 50 podcast. You're still doing the Alison Arngrim show.
I get Tuesday. It's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, good. And Julie was just on recently, if I'm not
She
mistaken.
was. She was. I just had her on. I love her.
I haven't listened to it yet. I'm a couple episodes behind, but I will catch up because I found your other podcast. I'm like, well, now I've got 80 other episodes to listen to. I've got the links to those, the Bonnet Heads website in the show notes. You are going around still now. You're doing a bunch of shows. Where are your next few shows coming up?
I have a list. You can go to either AlisonArngrim.net, got bonnetheads.com. How many websites are? Yeah, or SpinCycle NYC.com. SpinCycle's company that books me. SpinCycle NYC, they book a lot of lovely things. And there's the Nelly tour. I was just in Atlanta, New York, Nashville, Louisville. My next appearance for the show, I will be in Chicago in June. I actually just pulled that up because I was like, what day am I in Chicago? It's right after our June 6th to 8th fabulous Little House extravaganza in Northern California. Mm-hmm. There I am, Chicago. I am in Chicago on June 12th. In Chicago, and it's a place, Club Lips, but it's at Motor Row. It's the historic Motor Row theater there. It's fabulous. Chicago's Motor Row Theater. I'm going to be at that. And then June 19th, I go down to San Diego. So from California, I'm going to be practically almost local. And that's a Club Lips. And then Provincetown in July, 5 shows at the Red Room in Provincetown, Massachusetts. And then it's November. I go to San Francisco, but we'll have time to deal with that.
Yeah. And then are you doing, you were doing some live casts. I can't remember which website they were from, but you would get a ticket and we could watch you perform from your home. That was a lot of fun. I love those.
Stageit.com, because when the pandemic hit, my show in New York was canceled and my friends were just like, no. And then SpinCycle, who booked it, we have an idea. There's this thing. And next thing I know, I've got a backdrop, and like right over there, actually, just a few feet where I'm sitting now, I proceeded to do the show in my living room. We had pay-per-view, and I did dozens of them. We do different holidays because I had different theme backdrops. We Christmas and Halloween, really silly. And I suppose winter, when people don't, I'll probably do winter ones. That's But when you're having a pandemic or snowed in, I'll do a show in my living room. But so I'll perform anywhere. I'll perform in my kitchen if necessary.
They're a lot of fun. I've attended a few of them. I think the Nasty Nellie's Christmas was probably my favorite, just because I think you're always in performer mode. Like you're always so good at just jumping in from, okay, is the camera set? Is this good? All right, now you're on, and you are so good at that.
Naughty Noel. Nasty Nellie's Naughty Noel.
There was something like, I don't know if what it was, but you were just exceptionally on fire that day. Last year. I mean, I've enjoyed them all, but there was something like a little extra with that one. So yeah, my favorite. Yeah, but thank you so much for coming. Come back anytime. Come back. Enjoy the new, fresh attention that you'll be getting based on this new Netflix series. Obviously, we don't have an air date since they haven't even started shooting it yet. But it's going to be interesting because the way that they stream shows now, because there's no one a week kind of thing, they're going to have to shoot the whole season before they air it. And we'll have to talk about that whole process and how that affects things, because cliffhangers are meaningless now. Even if it's at the end of the season, people just forget about the show 5 minutes after it's over, and it ended up.
I was just an old person. I'm like, when's your show on Monday? When's your show on Tuesday? Now, when's your show on? I don't know. When would you like it to be on?
Right. Yeah. Well, it all comes out February 16th, all 10 episodes. And
that's it all happens on. Yeah. So I think by January they should have it. I think it was up to me. Christmas, they should start running it.
That would be good. Yeah.
House on the freaking prairie. Yeah. But there you go.
Well, if you would hold on for me for just 1 second,
Sure.
Alison. You guys, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you, Alison, for coming back to the show. It is always a
You're
joy to
welcome.
have you back on. I'm so excited for people to get to see you live. You are such a great entertainer, and you are not nasty. You are not horrible.
Thank you.
You are absolutely lovely, and I love you dearly. You are wonderful. Thank you so much. For you
Thank you.
guys,
Thank you so much.
thank you for this episode. Check out Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. That show is pretty much wrapped up unless they come out with another album, which I will happily cover. And thank you for the endorsement, Uriah Heep. Also, check out Deep Purple Smoke on the Podcast, my other current show. I am currently airing episodes from Who Do We Think We Are and have a couple of really cool guests for that. I'm currently recording the Stormbringer episode, so I'm about a month ahead or so on that. If you guys have any questions, just write me an email, comment on one of the social media posts, all that good stuff. Check out Alison's links, and we'll see you guys next Wednesday. Cheers.